Military families have incredible stories of perseverance while navigating frequent moves, deployments, food insecurity, transitioning out of the military, and more. This is the place for them to share those stories, highlighting unique experiences of military families. Welcome to the Professional Dependa podcast. What's up, everybody? Hey, it's Mike, your host for the Professional Dependa. Welcome back to the show. Thank you for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. If you have not had a chance to, or if you've never thought to do it, if you would leave me a rating, leave me a review, lets me know how I'm doing, lets me know if y'all actually like my content or not. It would really appreciate, like, I would really appreciate it. And I know I can't speak, and it's a thing. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I'd really appreciate it if y'all would let me know how I'm doing. If there's any other topics you'd like for me to talk about, anything bugging that you just kind of want me to discuss that's has to do with military family life or not. There's a bunch of other stuff that I have, like, just useless information rattling around in my head about. So yeah, let me know what you want to hear about and we can work that out. Anyway, today's episode is one I've done before, but I don't remember if I did it last year or not. And I know it's been a while since I have talked about it. So we're going to talk about it today. Holidays. We are rapidly approaching the holidays. Thanksgiving's coming up, Christmas right around the corner, New Year's, all that stuff. And for military families, the holidays can be insanely stressful. Especially whenever you're coming up talking about how one in four families are experiencing food insecurity right now. I don't remember the exact stats. I should have went back and looked at this. I was just got done talking with my friend Heather Campbell from Glory Nutrition about food insecurity with military families, and it's a significantly higher rate than what people realize. So when you talk about the holidays coming up, and food is a big part of the holidays, right? So if you're already struggling to put food on the table, now you have to figure out a way to do something like extra special for the holidays. It can be super stressful. The part that I kind of want to focus on is about how do you deal with your family during holidays? Not like the people in your house, like not these people. Those are like, that's my family, my inside the house family. I'm talking about the are you coming home for the holidays? What are your plans for the holidays? If you're in town, can you come see me? Family for the holiday. That's the family that I'm talking about. How can you work your way around handling that stress? Um, my wife has been active duty for 13 years, and this is my kid's sixth state that they've lived in. And in those 13 years, we've only lived in the same state as our family, which is huge. Like to say that we were even stationed in the same state as both of our families is nuts. But we were there for 2 years. And first duty station, we weren't far away from family, which again, that's nuts. So for the first 4 years, we were only like 3 hours away from our family, which is it's still wild. Like even thinking about it now, it's wild to say, right? Like we were very fortunate to be first duty station, really close to family. And then a few duty stations later, stationed in the same, really and true, like I mean, in the same state, yeah, but like her family was 30 minutes down the road. And I say all that to get to this point, even if you're fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, to be that close to family, it can still be stressful because as you and your family have grown and kind of gotten your own thing going and you have your own family traditions, you have your own kind of norms that you go through. Maybe you like for your kids to have something special on Christmas Eve at your house. Maybe y'all have a tradition that you've started. Your family can really kind of start to they have a hard time understanding why you don't want to come see them, or if you do go see them, why won't you go? Hey, well, I know you're at your mom's house. Why can't you, just swing by the house? We're just 10 minutes up the road. And it's like, dude, we just traveled how far? Maybe you're overseas and you just came home for the holidays. You just got plane tickets and all this stuff and spent a whole bunch of money to go see your family for the holidays. And now you've got other friends that you haven't seen in a long time talking about, oh, just swing by the house and come see me. No, you come see me. This is on my time. And that kind of really And that sounds a little aggressive, I know, but at the same time, it needs to be a little aggressive because those friendships, those family members, they need to understand that you're already going way out of like, and it's this is such a sensitive topic, right? Because it sounds like I'm like we're blessing you with our presence. Well, maybe we are like, so maybe our presence is the present that year, because maybe that's what we could afford to do. We could afford the plane ticket to come see you, and that's really about it. Like the rest of it, we're just kind of we're hoping to keep it together for the rest of the year. I know the only time that we flew from Alaska to Arkansas to go see family, it was four of us, and that was not cheap. Those round trip tickets, that basically was Christmas that year because we kept trying to tell our family, look, y'all can't buy a bunch of presents for the girls. The girls were really small at that point. We're like, y'all can't buy a bunch of presents for the kids. And there was a few conversations. Well, why can I can buy them what I want to? I'm like, then you can pay for it to be shipped to Alaska because we have to have room for our luggage and we have to be able to get the stuff back on the airplane. We just can't. We're not. We don't have a vehicle. We can just throw it in and drive. 5 days to Alaska. I think it's actually like a 3-day drive. But having those conversations can be difficult, especially if you're flying. Anyway, y'all know how I get. I kind of squirrel sometimes. But I think what I'm getting at is you need to have that communication with your family about what you're able to do for the holidays and kind of what you're expecting for the holidays, not just gifts. I'm talking about time, your time and their time. Because especially if your spouse is deployed, you know, we've had a couple of Christmases where my wife was gone because of deployment. And the one year, the first time she was gone during Christmas, we stayed in Alaska. And I kind of got a little flack from our family. And they're like, well, why don't you bring the girls down here? I'm like, I'm not flying. And again, my girls were little. They were matter of fact, my youngest was still in diapers at that point. I was like, I'm not flying from interior Alaska to middle America with two kids by myself. One of them being in diapers, the other one wasn't that far out of them. So I was like, yeah, I'm not doing it. That is a boatload of stress because to get from where we were to where they were required 3 airplanes, and the planes leaving out of Fairbanks to make the connections in Seattle left at like 1 o'clock in the morning. Not doing it. Sorry, I love y'all, but no. So you need to have those conversations with your family and make sure they understand that there's certain things I'm willing to do, there's certain things I'm not just for me, but I'm not going to subject my kids to that. Could you imagine being in the airport with me by myself with two kids under 5? Shoot, at that time, were they both under? Well, one of them was definitely under 4. They may have both been under 4 years old at that point, 4 or 5. Either way, uh, yeah, two kids under 5, and being like 1 o'clock in the morning trying to get on an airplane, me by myself shuffling two kids. Could you imagine that? And guaranteed one of them they're going to be grumpy because it's 1 o'clock in the morning. But how would you feel being in the airport and having to handle that? Like that's why whenever we fly somewhere, if there's a parent that's like got a kid that's super grumpy about flying, they're getting. I'll put on my noise canceling headphones and press. I'm not giving that parent any grief because I know how they feel. I can imagine exactly how they feel, and my heart goes out to them because that's rough. So yeah, so holidays, right? And a lot of times, the holidays can be rough on us as it is because, like I said, my spouse has been deployed a few times, and this miss holidays. Those, and it seems like those time people are like, oh well, you need to be around families. Like, well, my kids just want their mom. They really don't care about being around the rest of the family. They will put on a face, they will mask up, and they will act happy but I know my kids and I know when they're pretending to be happy when they're not, because the that smile doesn't quite go up as high, their laugh isn't quite the same. And it's not me projecting, it's I know my kids. And so I've learned that whenever my kids really just don't want to be somewhere, I'm not going to put them through that. And that's hard for family to understand. Like that is really difficult sometimes for your family to sit back and go, well, why don't y'all want to be around us? It's not that we don't want to be around y'all. This is just a really tough time for us. And, we need that little extra grace from y'all to understand that we're having a tough time. It's the holidays. The people that we love are deployed or training or wherever. And we're hundreds of miles from the closest family. Maybe we don't want to travel. Maybe we want to stay home. And I know for us, that's what we're doing this year. We're staying here for Thanksgiving and we're not going anywhere for Christmas. We're finally living back in an area where it snows. Matter of fact, it snowed here on Halloween. It was great. Uh like big giant snowflakes too. My kids went nuts. It was hilarious. First time we'd seen decent snow since leaving Alaska. So it was a lot of fun for that. I mean, it snowed for like 10 minutes and it was melted within the next half hour, but it was still snow. So like that really encouraged my kids. And I was like, well, girls, we got two choices. And Kelly and I had already kind of discussed like what were we going to do? Were we going to stay or were we going to go? We were already leaning towards staying. Like we were 98% sure we wanted to stay, but we wanted to give our kids the option because it's their family too. And so we after that snow, they're like, we're staying. We want to be able to see, if we get snow for Christmas. And I was like, all right, we're staying. And it was kind of a hard pill for some of our family to swallow. They wanted us to drive to come see them. But that's always the way it works, right? Anytime the holidays come up when you're a military family, they always say, or at least it feels like it. Maybe it's not always, maybe this is my perception. I will preface that. But the feeling is always, oh, well, are you going to come see us? Are you going to come see us? You could flip that around. Y'all could come see us. Granted, where we live now, uh, I don't know if they really want to do that for the holidays because our house is significantly smaller. Um, and like we had family come visit when we had family come visit when we very first moved in, which was it's a good way to put it, interesting, because we still had stuff in, like, when I say that we had just moved in, I mean we had been in the house for a month. So, you know, we still are trying to figure. I mean, it's an older house. We'd already had one plumbing issue like within the first 24 hours of living here. So we're still trying to get this house figured out. And now we added four people to it on top of our four. So we had eight people in this house with two bathrooms and a random toilet in the basement. It's the weirdest thing. Uh, you can use it in a pinch, but just a random toilet in the basement. Anyway, so granted, like I said, right now we live in a spot where maybe them coming to visit us is not ideal, and really don't want to do that because we have it's three bedrooms, but one of the bedrooms is this is attached to the bedroom, so it's not ideal for family to come visit us. But even the offer, I think, would at least mentally be a little relieving. Like, okay, well, at least people are willing to travel. And like I said, we've been pretty fortunate here. I think we're 10 hours away from her family. Well, I mean, hell, for my family too, because they live pretty close together. So, they have all been here already. Like this is the first time in years that everybody in the family has been to this house since we've been here. We've only been here for 6 months. So that was a very nice change of pace. But any other time before that, it's always been, are y'all coming to visit? Are y'all coming to visit? Even whenever we were in Arkansas, it was, are y'all coming to visit are y'all coming to our house for this? Y'all coming to our house for that? We lived just down the road. And I'm not worried about anybody in my family listening to this podcast. None of them, none of them do anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, like we lived 30 minutes away, and I can count on one hand the number of times they came to our house. Because they always wanted us. Everybody was always expected us to come to where they were, because that's, and part of that is on us, right? Because you have to have boundaries as a person, as a family. You have to have boundaries, and those boundaries, you have to make them known, and you have to make people, understand that these are the boundaries that you are going to hold to. And we weren't really good at doing that, because it created conflict. It created a lot of stress and tension. It was just easier for us to go, we'll come to y'all, we'll come to y'all. And I think because of that, we have kind of allowed that to form and foster. And I know this seems like I'm rambling, just kind of running on, but what I'm getting at, because that is something that we have done, I bet if you went back and looked and you thought about it, that is also something that you have done as a military family. I mean, if you think about it, how many times, especially early on, if you're, like I said, my wife's been in for 13 years, if especially early on, whenever, there was a long weekend, or, uh, they got their block leave, and y'all were like, hey, we'll just come visit. We'll come visit. And so, and especially if you did that early before you had kids, you're getting that boundary of, and you're getting that level of expectation that you're going to be the one to come visit. Well, that's what you have allowed. That's what we've allowed. Because even whenever before my wife joined the Air Force, whenever, if I had a 4-day weekend off of work, or a 3-day weekend, because I didn't get 4 days, I got 3 days. If I had a long weekend from work, or if my wife had a few days off of school, and I would take extra leave, we would always go travel. We lived in an apartment. Dallas wasn't that far away. It's where her family was living at the time. So we would always go travel. So this is something that we did to ourselves. And it's really hard to sit here and look back on that this is something that we allowed to start almost 20 years ago. This is the expectation that we started. So why would my family expect anything different from us now? That's unfortunately, that's the way it is. And so it's going to be really difficult, or it has been really difficult, for us to kind of start setting those boundaries that we've allowed for so long. Of, yeah, I know we've always been the ones to come see y'all. We can't do that this year. And it really started in Alaska. I know I talk about Alaska a lot, but that Alaska was kind of our tipping point, because we were so far away, we were so isolated, and then there was still that expectation that, oh, well, y'all can come visit, and we just couldn't. It was financially, it would have been financially irresponsible of us to just hop on a plane and travel every time a holiday happened, every time they were like, hey, why don't y'all come visit for this, or can y'all come to this? It would have been super irresponsible of us. We would have been in so much debt. It's insane. So it has been a really difficult thing to do, to start switching that mindset of, hey, we are unable to travel. I'm sorry, we love y'all, but we can't. We're not going to. And then being okay with whatever their reaction was. That's been the hard part for both of us, has been the back end of that, of, okay, we are okay with this idea, and then navigating those emotions later, whenever you're getting the, oh, well, y'all don't want to do this. I really wish my Southern came out. We really missed y'all. We really sure wish you could make it. So and so was asking about you. All this stuff. That can be hard to deal with on the back end. So that's why setting those boundaries and sticking to them are so important. And that's what I have found since we left Alaska, is that is the best way to deal with family and the holidays. Understand that you may have set that expectation early without realizing you were setting that expectation. If you sit back and look at it and go, well, man, we did always travel whenever we had block leave or whenever there was a long weekend, like a family day, etc. And we always traveled. And then after we had kids, we still always traveled. That's the level of expectation you set within your family. So it takes a little bit of onus to sit back and look at it and go, this is a problem that we created. And I fully admit that I just realized this like last week, because the running joke in our family with my wife and I has always been, how early will our family start discussing the holidays? Like when will that first question of, are you coming here for the holidays, when will it show up? And it's usually Christmas, usually Thanksgiving, everybody kind of does their own thing for us. But usually Christmas is the big one where the question starts coming up of, when are we coming? And it's not if, it's usually been the question of, when are you coming for Christmas? And again, that's a problem that's a problem that we created. So really, it's hard to sit there and be mad about it. I mean, granted, we were mad about it, or I was, for a long time, but it's really hard to be upset about it when it's a problem you created. And that's where that onus on setting those boundaries are. And my wife and I, we discussed it this year. We're like, look, we're not doing it. We're not going. And for whatever reason, that was like immediately accepted by all parties involved this year. Like it came up, and I don't even think it was a question this year. I think it was so y'all are staying there for the holidays this year. Um, I don't know if we said something unintentional or intentionally unintentional, if that makes any sense, or what the deal was. But everybody's kind of assumed we weren't traveling for Christmas this year, and they were right, because we were already planning on when were we going to tell them. Both of our kids were super okay with it, and this is the first year that we've kind of like just let it be known, hey, we're not traveling for Christmas this year, and everybody was okay with it. So, but it's going to make it easier to set that boundary moving forward now, right? I mean, now we've been here, like I said, we've been in Ohio for 6 months, but going forward, it's going to be a lot easier, because now we've already kind of got past that first level of it where, okay, we all aren't coming, that's fine. So next year, if we're still just like, no, we're not coming, we're happy, we've got plans for Christmas here, because there's things we want to do, things we want to experience, then they can either come see us, or that's what Zoom and FaceTime and stuff is for, right? Um anyway, so that's kind of like how we handle the holidays. We didn't handle them well in the past. We always travel. We've worked very hard over the last couple of years to kind of set those new boundaries and be like, no, we really want to be here for the holidays. Georgia was tough because my wife was gone a lot, and so whenever she would come back, her first deployment while we were there, she didn't miss the holiday. She got back like right before Halloween, and when I say right before, I mean like on the 30th. Like, I mean, right before Halloween. So she didn't really miss the holidays then. And then the next year she missed the holidays, so because she was going back to back. So this year we really kind of we just want to have mom here for the holidays because she missed them last year. So, and that may be part of why our family is so ready to accept it, but that's also going to kind of be how we look at it moving forward is, we want to make sure that we have as much time together as we can, because we never know whenever mom's going to deploy again, especially in the position that we're in right now. And that's not necessarily the excuse you have to use or the rationale you have to use. You can use whatever rationale you need. Either you are so geographically separated that it would just be fiscally irresponsible of you to do it, because you know what your financial situation is. You don't have to let your family doesn't have to know your financial situation. But you know your financial situation. If you are in another country, or just like, let's say, East Coast to West Coast to where your family is, I mean, air travel is not cheap anymore. I mean, it's never been super cheap, but it's definitely gotten more expensive over time. And price of gas, I mean, I know for diesel's $4 a gallon right now with my Kroger points. It's like 4.30 without it. So, my truck gets a little over 20 on the highway, which is honestly pretty good. The Weiss 4Runner barely cracks 17. And I mean, regular gas is just under $3 a gallon here. I don't know what it is across the rest of the country, but I mean, that's if you've got a 3-day drive ahead of you, that's a lot of money in fuel. Add in hotels and food and all that other fun stuff, and that adds up quick. Again, that may be one of those years where your presence is the present. And that's just one of those things that families going to have to understand, and you're going to have to help them understand. Having those hard conversations is not, and I know I just said having those hard conversations is not easy, but that's just the way it is. Whenever you have to have those conversations with people and make them understand, or at least help them understand. You can't force anybody to understand, but you have to at least give them the opportunity to understand where you're coming from. What your situation is, why you're making the choices that you're making. And if they can't accept it, they can't accept it. But you have to be secure enough in your ideas and in the reasons for what you're doing to be okay if they don't like it. And that's the part that's not easy. Having the tough conversation isn't easy, but then dealing with it on the back end, those feelings of guilt, you have to be secure enough in what you said to where you're like, you know what, I'm sorry you feel that way, but this is the best decision for my family. I really can't say it any better than that right there. That is, you have to understand your situation enough and explain it in a way to where if you are comfortable with the way you explained it, and if they don't get it or they don't like it, that's on them. You're not responsible for how they receive your news. As long as you gave it to them in a way that was non-confrontational and just like, hey, this is what's going on, this is what we're doing this year, and if they don't like it, sorry. I mean, that's the really the gist of it, isn't it? And if you think back across some of these other conversations that I've had with y'all, really the communication and then you being okay with what they do with that information on the back end, it all comes back to communication. I mean, almost every other podcast where it's just me talking, it boils down to communication. So anyway, this is going to be a super short episode because that's really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the holidays. The holidays are tough. The holidays can be stressful. I know for us personally, like if you want to talk about gift giving, we have drastically changed the way we do gifts. It used to be, we were super excited that we could provide our kids with things that we never had as kids, and so we would buy them stuff. And that's fine. Buy your kids stuff if you want to buy them stuff. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what to do with your money. I'm not, unless you want to buy a shirt, please do. That'd be great. One of my shirts, that is. But we asked our kids one year, we said, look, would you rather have more stuff or would you rather do something? Like maybe we were like, would you rather maybe get a couple smaller gifts and then be able to go do something cool? Or would you rather get a couple of small gifts and maybe a bigger gift? But it's all just stuff. And my oldest, it was instantly like, that sounds cool. I'd like to go do something. I want to go do stuff. Because our kids aren't lacking for stuff. Chances are your kids aren't lacking for stuff either. If you don't look at it from the exact, oh, my kids don't have an Xbox. My kids don't have an Xbox either. I mean, my kids don't have one of those electric scooters, or if you stop looking at it like a keeping up from the Joneses type deal and you start looking at it as what do they actually have, chances are your kids aren't lacking for stuff. They're probably happy with what they have. They're kids, so they're probably going to say, I really wish I had that. I really wish I had this. We live in the area we live in is very affluent. which is still a funny word to say, but it's a thing. So it's a pretty Gucci area. We live on the beer tent side of the garden of the Champagne district, but so my kid goes to school. My both of my kids go to school with some kids that are pretty good, pretty well off, and so they've started with the, well, I really want this, I really want that, and it's like a VR headset, an electric scooter, blah 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 blah. And so I brought it up to him again, like, well, do you want things, more stuff to go in your room, or do you want to do something? Because I would rather spend, the money for a VR headset and take my kids back to Cedar Point, or go to Busch Gardens, or go camping, maybe go to like Banff National Park or something like that. Like, go get an experience rather than, here's a VR headset that you're not going to play with in a year. Going to something like Cedar Point, which is a lot of fun. We went for Halloween. It was great. Or we actually went towards the end of September, but they'd already had their Halloween stuff going. Anyway, or going to like Banff National Park, which is, we have never been to. I've heard it's gorgeous. That is an experience that they're going to carry with them for a long time, and they're going to remember it well past the point of having that virtual reality headset. So that's what we like to do as a family, is do experiences over stuff. And that's one thing that and I know the economy is tough and times are tight. Trust me, I know this. You know, I know it about as well as anybody. But there's still things that are close by that you can go and experience. Like, we just went down to Hocking Hills, which is about a 2 hour drive from where we are. Phenomenal. It was so pretty. We had such a good time. It was a little crowded because it's an incredibly popular hiking spot, but it was gorgeous. We had a great time. Took the dog with us. He did great. Took a bunch of pictures. That's something that my kids are going to talk about for months. They're already asking to go back. So that's one thing that I recommend: experiences over things, because things break, things get stuffed into a corner and never used again. Experiences, those things can last. I mean, depending on the experience, it can last a lifetime. My kids will probably talk about going to Disney and meeting Peter Pan, and for a very long time, that was such an incredible experience, because the meeting Peter Pan thing was unexpected. It was unexpected for us. He just popped up. Serious, like the dude just like came out of nowhere, and just started interacting with my kids, and it was great. Whoever that guy was that was acting as Peter Pan that day, you know, tip of the hat to you, because my kids still talk about that. And then the meeting, he sent them to meet Jack Sparrow, and leading up to my girls talking with whoever was acting as Jack Sparrow, each interaction was about 30 seconds to a minute. He spent like 5 minutes. I've got it on tape. It was like 4.5 minutes of interacting with my kids, and it was personal. Like, it was, oh, Peter Pan sent you here, right? Or sent you here to tell me what? And it was incredible. My kids still talk about that. That was a year ago. So, experiences over things, my personal opinion. um Dealing with the holidays, set boundaries, communicate, and try not to stress. I know holidays are stressful, especially if your spouse is deployed. um if you need help during the holidays, Military One Source is a great source. There's a lot of good people you can talk to. um Reach out to your helping agencies at your base. um if you need somebody to talk to, if you need help getting food for the holidays, um, there's definitely resources out there. If you need help getting food for the holidays, look up Glory Nutrition. Heather is a phenomenal resource to help figure out how to do cool things on a budget. She's really good at putting together things that would help, you know, be able to have food for the holidays if you don't have a lot of money to spend. She's great at that. Again, Military One Source. Um, I don't remember what the Army one is, but if you go, Military Family Readiness Center, for Air Force and Space Force. They can help. Most bases have a food pantry. Um, don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it. I know that's as an adult, especially as whenever you are of a certain rank, it can be almost embarrassing because you're thinking people think I'm supposed to have this together, and they don't realize that everybody's journey is different. Everybody struggles differently. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help. So communicate, ask for help if you need it. Um, y'all have a great day. This kind of turned out a little bit more somber than I expected it to, especially here towards the end. But sometimes that happens. Anyway, y'all have a great day. Thanks for listening in. We will catch y'all next week. Cheers.